Hey everyone, welcome to 20 Minutes with 2020 Mendocino, our weekly podcast segment that has just returned. We've been on hiatus. I am your host, Carlos, creative director over at 2020 Mendocino. I'm joined by our founder, Adam. How you doing, Adam?
Hey, pretty good, Carlos. Thanks.
So it's been a crazy summer, man. Besides the global pandemic that's affecting everyone, a lot of the growers around the country have been affected by several natural disasters as well. The snows in Colorado decimated a lot of stuff. The wildfires have decimated a lot of stuff on the West Coast and have still a lot of stuff in peril still. So we've been dealing with a lot of that back home. Can you give us any updates on that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So there's been evacuation, mandatory evacuations for a huge part of the major cultivation areas in southern Humboldt, northern Mendocino, and they have essentially just had to abandon their farms. And there's just today the sheriff made a deal with the local Department of Agriculture to get special permits to let people back in, basically to water their plants. So they're getting permits to get through the sheriff checkpoints, and they can go up, and they have to come back through in the following day, or I guess they'll get cited or something. I'm not really sure how they enforce people come leaving, but they're keeping track of who goes in and who comes out, and they're taking it pretty serious because the fires, they've been holding them back pretty well. But if the winds pick up, if the winds turn the wrong direction or anything, with weather could change pretty quickly. And boy, they can start moving real fast. And I think the last thing that the local relief, or the emergency agencies want, is to have a bunch of deaths on their hands from mismanagement of the fire lines. So it's pretty crazy. We've got I feel really bad for a lot of people. There's a lot of ash and soot on plants everywhere. I see lots of videos people are sending of shaking plants off, and even some of our test plants that we have in our little outdoor patch got really dusted out. It was bad. And then there's basically been no sun for the last 2 weeks, so it's gonna be a bummer crop for probably most of the entire state of California, but particularly the Emerald Triangle definitely got hit pretty hard. So
Right on,
I have
man.
sympathy for everyone, and I'm just feeling really lucky that we're still in the clear. But I certainly don't hold my breath on that, because I've seen these things turn quickly. So once the first big rains come, then we'll be happy and breathing again.
Well, the way I like to look at it right now is that pressure forms diamonds. So no matter what happens, I know the safety of our team is always our number one priority. So everything else will fall in line after that.
Yeah, that's for sure, and that's exactly what I told the crew. We made an evacuation plan, and I said, look, number one, first and most important thing is don't be a hero, get out of here alive, and then if you have time to save some things, then here's a list. And I know you got the text message as well, but yeah, I basically just broke down a list of things for number one most important items to grab, all the way down the list. And we've already got most of the seed stash and the genetics, and even a lot of clones off of the properties, to make sure that if there is a fire, that we're not just completely without everything. Because honestly, that's more value than structures and money and everything, is our library of genetics that we've been building up for all this time.
That's a fact. So I'm just gonna rattle off a couple of topics that have happened recently, just so we can catch people up with some of the stuff that we have going on. So, do you want to give an update on our autoflower situation? I know we get a lot of questions on that.
Yeah, I'd love to. And hopefully we can do several, or for sure one, if not several, autoflower episodes here soon, especially when we start doing releases. So yeah, it's been a real fun, long, and somewhat arduous process of really getting these things to how we want them. The quality's been there all along, but what I'm really working on now is honing down like the perfect autoflower trait. And what I've seen with autoflowers, when you first start making them from scratch or from the ruderalis or whatnot, what you get is just a real wide variety of the onset of flowering. And I basically have these kind of these three categories I put them in. There's the hair triggers, I call them, and these are the autos that just basically go to flower when they're tiny. I mean, sometimes just 4 inches tall. And then you get the kind of the middle of the road ones, which is really what I'm shooting for. And then you have the long haulers, I call them, and those are the ones that, like, they end up switching over to auto, but they take forever. And unfortunately, it's one of the things that makes auto flowers not really viable for most farmers, especially commercial farmers that are doing it for the bottom line, is that they can't have a 1 month harvest window. I mean, farmers need a harvest window that's really preferably in one day, let alone, a week is even pushing it. So I'm seeing that with a lot of commercial auto strains and just general auto strains available, is that they haven't really honed down that genetic, and I'm not really sure why, but I'm assuming it's that they're just not picking um, the right parents to pass on the gene to. And more often than not, I'm seeing, especially with the commercially available strains, as the hair trigger autos, which actually annoy me more than the long haulers, because you just don't get the big enough plants. And so, yeah, that's been the process now. So we've kept the quality up for sure from the beginning, but it's just a matter of getting that auto trait perfected. So I think we're going to be there. We're already starting our first production runs. They're going to be small. So we're starting small with the production runs, but we're doing the first couple strains. 3 strains that I believe will probably be the first to be released will be the double white, which was the original that we started working with. We crossed that with nose candy, which was one of our strains, and now I'm working it back towards full auto, and it's looking really good. It's pretty mold resistant. It's been a great one to work with. And then we've got the biscotti that we crossed um, with Triangle Kush, and that's going to be real gassy, super nice, super fast. And then watermelon Skittles crossed with Triangle Kush as well. And those three, they'll be on F4s by the time we release them. So they're looking really good. And then there's just going to be a whole line of of new ones that we're coming out with after that. So it's going to be pretty much nonstop for the next year or two.
Um,
So yeah, I'd love to talk about autos more. Let's move on, but let's certainly bring
I
this
want to.
subject back up. There's a lot to talk about, unless you have a question.
I definitely want to come back to one of our other releases on the fem side that we just had, and that's the spice. Can you give us a little information on that? I think a lot of people are very excited about it, but it's also very slept on at the same time. I think our core group of fans have embraced it, but I think there's a lot of people that need to be aware of the awesomeness of that strain.
Yeah. So we were just literally happy as can be when we first started growing the spice. We've ran multiple test runs of it. In fact, you and I were together when we really did the first pheno hunt on the spice, on the original F1 spice plants that we made. And I've been ridiculed for calling it spice, and we don't call it spice, we call it the spice. But I'm well aware that spice is a synthetic THC, and I was aware of it when we named it that. And I'm kind of dealing with a little bit of the blowback of that. But we did, we that name, our name that we came up with, all of us collectively came up with for that strain, had nothing to do with the synthetic THC. And that this strain literally is just straight out of your spice cabinet. I mean, it smells like cloves and anise and allspice, and I mean, it smells like all those Christmas spices all put together, the Christmas cookie spice and the eggnog spices. And I mean, it's pungent, but it's also just like straight Kush gas. I mean, a lot of that comes from the biscotti, but also the whip is that Afghan gas. So it's really was just such a perfect culmination. And the what we really our intention of that all along was to bring the biscotti up a notch in bag appeal and in just general growability. The biscotti is one of the first strains in a long time of basically other people's strains that we've grown that we were excited enough with to use in our breeding program. And it's really done wonders. So just bringing some of our really potent genetics and good growable, just generally growable flower together with such a terpene bomb has been a great marriage. So the spice was the first one, and you and I think we tried to dig through about 40 females, and I can clearly remember, as I know you do, the moment of us just looking at each other and being like, every single one of these are good. How do we even make a choice? And they were all pretty much identical. So I'm sure you can speak to that as well.
Okay, that brings me to the other release that we had at the very same drop, which is the Durban Berry King Band, and the Durban Berry King Band is what's going to bring us into part 2 of the episode that we owed the people. So here you go, guys. Here's the start of our Durban episode. So
yeah, we're really far behind. So I'm sure
before we get into the Durban Berry King Band, let's start with the double Durban. And I think the first part of that story is that Durban orange male that we used. And how did we come across those Durban orange seeds?
Yeah, so that's a good story. I'll try to tell it quick. I know we're limited on time here, but so
I think we owe the people this time. So if we go into like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, I think they wouldn't mind.
it's been a bit. Okay. So the Durban, we ran across we got the seeds at a seed trade event that were kind of a regular thing in Mendocino. They're a little less common now, but they're still seed trading events. They're a little larger and more commercialized, I guess you could say, than they used to be. But we got these at one of the farm co-op events that we attended, where basically a bunch of farmers would just show up and hand out seeds to each other. And we got a pack, and I believe they were labeled Durban Orange. There wasn't a whole lot of information on them, so to this day, I try not to quote the genetics because we've never really pinned it down, but it's basically a Durban poison crossed with some sort of orange strain. It may be Agent Orange, but again, we don't know for sure. So I'm not telling people beyond that there's a Durban poison. And we basically held on to the seeds. And then one day we were up visiting our friends at Happy Day Farms and on Bell Springs Road, and we realized that they had that growing, the same plant. They had also got the same seeds, and as soon as we saw it and smelled it, we're like, oh yeah, we got to get this back into the system. And so right around that same time, we had been talking about really getting some of these really good growable sativas back into seed form, and there's not a lot of those. You grow a lot of sativas and it's just a joke, the quality is great, but they're not even halfway budded in December. And we learned that lesson with some equatorial sativas that you had picked up at one point, I know, where we were like looking at them at Christmas time and laughing because they were still only halfway done. So you got to be pretty particular about which sativas you pick out. So we saw this Durban orange growing up at our buddy's place, and we were like, oh yeah, we've got seeds for that, so we're going to grow it. We're going to start using it for our seed program. And we involve, of course, everyone knows our train wreck, our history with train wreck. Most people do. It's deeply rooted in in our blood, and runs through our veins, so to say. So we initially, one of the things that kind of strikes me about Durban poison and that Durban cut particularly is it's got the same similar terpene profile to Trainwreck. Now I say that pretty loosely. If you smell them next to each other, they're really not that similar. But if you don't have them next to each other, then they really kind of have that. They're in the same family, I should say. They're in the same family of terpenes. So we could tell by looking at it the size of the plant and how well it was finishing in it was around September when we saw them, that we could definitely incorporate that plant in. So that's where the Durban orange came from. That's where the double Durban came from also was from the Durban Orange. And yeah, do we want to move on to Durban Berry King Band? I guess so.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I kind of want to let everybody know that if they want to hear about the original story of the Ogreberry King Band, they can go back to our episode with Casey from Happy Day Farms.
yes,
It's the one with the Jordan emblem holding the strawberry. You guys can see the artwork really easy on
yeah,
YouTube. That episode.
yeah.
So
That's a
they
great
can hear
episode.
about that. So what was your goal in crossing the Durban Orange onto the Ogreberry King Band?
So well, with that one, it was just all about the terpenes, and it was like, hey, let's take our biggest, most monstrous, heavy terpene, super fast growing outdoor plant and mix it with another super terpene, ultra monstrous, ultra fast growing plant, and see what they do together. Because the Ogreberry King Band is just this really aggressive strain that it's a hybrid. It's certainly not a sativa, although it's maybe I would say it's in the 50-50 range, but it's just punch you in the face aggressive and punch you in the face terpenes. It's got the rotten grape smell. To me, it smells like gym socks. I mean, it's just got this kind of nasty, fruity, um, kind of almost gross like fruit smell to it. And so I was really just kind of like, let's put aggressive on aggressive and see what it does. And so we're actually growing them outdoor right now in the smoke, and the plants are as expected. They're giant. They're in thick beds, growing really close to each other. They're at least 14 feet tall. Massive buds on them. I mean, it's exactly what we would have expected. It's so that one's just been kind of a fun experiment, and the variation in the phenotypes, I would say looks wise they look very similar, but smell wise we're kind of getting the gamut of the more citrusy, super strong pine citrus terpenes from the Durban berry. I'm sorry, from the Durban, and then some of the real gassy ones from the Durban, from the double sorry
Ogreberry
the
King Band.
Overberry. Yeah. So but it's definitely fits the profile of a aggressive sativa plant, we'll say. And the finish time on it looks like it's going to be average to late. It's definitely not an early finisher, which we didn't expect. Uh, and I would guess the third week of October we'll be harvesting it. So it's not the late beyond the point of no return type harvest, but it wouldn't be recommended for people in northern latitudes that need to get their stuff out by the first week of October.
Right
And
on.
then lastly, I guess we can go right into the Whistling Moon
Yeah,
Traveler.
that's exactly where I was going next. So I know that tentatively right now we have the Avenue of the Giants and the Whistling Moon Traveler. So Avenue of the Giants will be fem and Whistling Moon Traveler will be regular, and that'll be our next drop sometime in early October. So you guys keep an eye out for that. So yeah, totally go into the Whistling Moon Traveler, and how do we go about that name?
Well, the name came when on the 4th of July I was digging through some fireworks in my shed, and uh, saw the bottle rockets that are actually illegal here in California that I never use because they've been in my shed forever because it's stupid to fire them off because of fires. and and one of them's called the Whistling Moon Traveler, and I'm like, oh, there we go. That's a perfect strain name for the train wreck um, Durban. So
Yeah, so just
basically what
just to
we've got.
clarify too, that's the T Dub on the Durban Orange. So
I'm sorry, the T Dub, exactly. Our version of train wreck. So both of those strains are just the head spinning, euphoric, classic sativas. You get motivated, you want to go to work type um, effects that they have. So it just felt like a perfect name. It's like you're gonna go to the moon and back, and you're gonna whistle while you're headed there. So it's it's been it's exactly as we predicted. It's really close phenotypes. That's because they are, like, as I mentioned, they have they're in the same family of terpene smells, and so all the phenols just came out really close to each other. Really, really big buds, just kind of almost just ridiculous. Like it was fun to grow those strains, because it reminds me of a lot more of the strains we used to grow back in the 90s, but still got the heavy frost and really potent, and um, just a great strain for indoor and outdoor. But it's a stretcher, super stretchy, super stretch. Definitely needs trellising. Don't want to grow it in a short tent, because it will reach the top of the tent pretty quickly. Or if you do, you got to be very, very aware of that fact, and be ready for a plant to triple or quadruple in size after you switch it over. And that's, one of the things I like that trait. So to me, that's not a bad trait. I actually like growing strains like that. Um, but it's certainly something that not everybody can grow those type of strains.
Yeah, I just kind
But
of want to highlight that everything that we've released on on the sativa side this year is just monstrous. All the train wreck varieties that we have, and the Durban varieties that are coming out, and the ones that are out already, are just ridiculously huge.
yeah, for sure. And that it's funny because the terpene profiles are similar on those. So you definitely, if you grow 2020 sativas, you're going to be like, wow, they all kind of have a similar smell, except for the DBKBs, the Durbanberry King Bands. They're pushing a little more towards the funky, gassy fruit side. But
You'll find that in the hot mess too. It's just,
and
yeah, it's just the
yeah,
train wreck is so dominant. You're right.
the train wreck is very dominant, and we've learned this now with train wreck in the past, is if you don't want a strain to grow like train wreck or to smell like train wreck, then you have to cross it with something that also has a really, really dominant smell. And so it's the only way to get like them to mix. And so with glue sniffer, when we made the hot mess, glue sniffer is uh, a really potent smell, but it's like all gas. And the thing is all gas isn't dominant. Other terpenes tend to be more dominant, as in like really heavy fruit, or in like the train wreck case, like the pine and the lemon peel smell. And that just ends up beating over the gas. So what you end up with is basically a gassy train wreck. And that's what the hot mess is. So it's a good mix for those people that actually really want to still have that fuel smell in their strains, but want to have the big fast growing sativas. And in fact, I got a guy from New York just sent me pictures of hot mess. He said it was the overall winner in his garden. He's harvesting it next week, which it's incredible. So I'm really was happy to hear that, because we're only running it right now too, in just a few plants. So we didn't get a big outdoor test of it. Although I think there's some other local farms growing it. I haven't talked to them, but it seems like it's going to be early, which would make sense with the train wreck being a really early strain as well. So
Speaking of which, I kind of just want to highlight to any of our listeners out there that happen to be harvesting any outdoor 2020 plants this year, please send us some pictures and some feedback. You can hit us up on the contact us. You can DM us, whatever it is. We just definitely want to hear from you for sure. Is there
yeah.
anything else that we need to talk about? I know that I kind of want to highlight some of the new stuff that we got going on. Do you want to talk about the new packaging that we have?
Yeah. So we've got some new instead of we had like a matchbox, we called it, which is essentially what it was, matchbox design. So we came up with some matchbooks. They're really cool. They're just like just pretty much a classic matchbook, and they save on folding time and space. And we're gonna have those for our autoflowers, for our smaller packs. So for the 3 seed packs for sure, maybe the 6 seed packs, and then for our freebies that we're going to be passing out. So they're really nice. We got a lot of them printed up, and they're going to
I also
be
just I kind of want to
nice.
let everybody know that they should definitely sign up for our email list. Um, We have a rendition of Free the Seeds this year. It might go under another title still associated with Free the Seeds, but we got something in the works. I won't speak on it now. I'm sure Adam doesn't want me to either, but I really highly suggest that everybody sign up for our email list and let all your friends know. It's going to be really awesome.
Oh yeah, we'll be pumping it up too, so I'm sure it'll make it around.
Right on. So this is a great catch-up episode. I'm sure everybody wanted to hear what we have going on, and definitely wanted some information on that Durban stuff. So is there anything else that you want to highlight on this episode, Adam?
No, I mean, I think that covers most of the subjects I wanted to talk about.
Right on. So I just want to remind everybody, give us a follow on Instagram at 2020mendocino.com. That's 20 spelled out, 20 Mendocino. Um, Also at 2020 Oklahoma. And we have a new page at 2020 Autoflowers. Give that a follow because I'm sure that that'll be probably the first place that we drop any information on our autoflowers. Um, Besides that, is I think that covers everything. Make sure you guys check your packs for your greenbacks too. We haven't had any, too many people hit us up on those, but I'm sure they're getting around. So check out the 2020mendocino.com/greenbacks and redeem those for some merchandise. Get your swag up for the fall. So with
Yeah.
that, I'm going to say goodbye. Adam, any final words?
No, I just was gonna say that I look forward to doing a couple more episodes on STS. We've had a lot more questions coming in about reversing plants, and so I'm happy to kind of go back to that question and answer type format that we started this podcast with as well. So once we can catch up on some of the news, 2020 news, and kind of catch up on the last 4 months or whatever, let's get back into these talking about growing, and also we've had the long awaited IPM uh, conversation too that I'd love to have, and
Right
so
on. So
look forward to some more just grow centric type podcasts that we'll be trying to put out here soon.
definitely. So everybody, please send us questions, and that's across all platforms. Comment them on YouTube, email them to us, DM them to us. Just spam us with them. We'll answer them and we'll get to them all. I think though on our next episode we're going to be covering Avenue of the Giants and something new that we got coming out, Girl Crush. Does that sound about right, Adam?
Yeah, that's it.
Right on. So, alrighty, guys, have a good one. This has been 20 minutes with 2020 Mendocino. We're back weekly Sundays on YouTube. We've changed our time though. However, catch us at 4:20 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you, guys.